Welcome back to the Void Compass. Today I'm going to take us into a slightly more esoteric and abstract direction. I need to. For to explain what I'm going to explain, I will need to travel to the higher dimensions, so to speak. I'm still going to be right here. But energetically, we will need to look at things from a higher perspective. There is a very prevalent question that a lot of people on this journey have, which is this. Why is there so much variance from journey to individual journey? Why do certain journeys simply not match the standardized official twin flame narrative that we have so often heard? Why is there so much variance? Another one is, why does my individual journey not look like the official narrative? Am I even on this journey if I do not match that official narrative? Now, in order to understand the reason for this deviation from that standardized journey, we need to look at this from a different perspective. What I need you to understand is this. Whatever you are experiencing within your individual twin flame awakening journey, the physical circumstances, the words said, actions taken, whether they're here or whether they're not, what energy they are presenting in, whatever you're experiencing is simply energy from the higher realms trickling into your experience. The actual domain, the location, if there is such a thing, of this journey mechanically is in the higher dimensions. Now, which dimension exactly? Who knows? Is it the 5th, the 7th, or the 13th? Nobody really knows. And anybody who says they do has pulled that out from somewhere, because nobody really knows. Unless you've ascended to that dimension yourself and you've come back down, we don't really know. We suspect. We have an idea, but we don't truly know. We do know it is from the higher dimensions. That is certain. There is an almost quantum machinery that is taking place here. An unexplainable, undefinable nature to this journey that carries on of its own accord, regardless of our mind-based definitions and labels and standardized story that we all seem to repeat over and over again. For those of you who don't know what I mean by standardized story, I'm speaking of the typical experience where you go through a bubble up phase that lasts about 2 to 3 months. During that period, there is soul recognition. The energies start to build after soul recognition. Eventually, the energies turn into the dynamic of runner and chaser, divine feminine locked in after divine masculine. Deep pain ensues and confusion, a dark night of the soul, which lasts however long it's going to last. And then the individual does all their balancing work, and just like that, we're back in play. And a potential physical reunion can occur. That's the official story. And yes, we all know it's not really about the person, and we tell ourselves that as we endlessly pursue our North Star, which is always the twin. But we don't admit it to ourselves, for a while at least. But regardless, That's the standardized journey that you will hear over and over and over again. The reality is, it does not always pan out that way. It just doesn't. I'm in a unique position where I speak to twins pretty much every single day. It is my privilege to do so, but it also grants me a perspective that a lot of people might not have. And more often than not, I am seeing people's journeys that do not match this standardized template at all. I just don't see it. There are people without bubble love phases. There are people who have experienced soul recognition in the weirdest ways. People who have experienced a lot of physical contact with their twin intermittently while they were in really lousy energy, completely imbalanced. And then at times others who are in amazing, balanced, high energy, who don't see or hear from their twins at all. But the official narrative says the opposite. When you're not in good energy, they're nowhere to be found. And when you're in amazing energy, the official narrative says that they'll come rappelling down the walls SWAT style, crashing in through your window going, I'm here. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a huge deviation from that standardized official narrative. So what then? Why is this the case? Why are we holding on to a mental definition of how this story unfolds? Do you think that the human mind that attempts to encapsulate the sheer majesty and perfection of this journey, do you think that the mind would be able to truly understand it, to truly define it, to squeeze it into a tiny little box that it can understand and control? What do I always say? Soul takes precedence. It knows exactly what it's doing. Every soul has its own way that it wants to wake up in this journey. It knows exactly when to bring them in, when to take them away, when to get them to say this, and when to get them to say not this. And it's all happening without your mental participation. These attempts to define this journey in such a rigid manner is nothing more than a drive to control this journey. You cannot rigidly define this journey. You cannot. We don't have what it takes to rigidly define it. It is an otherworldly mechanic. It's not of this world. It is occurring at a higher dimension. We are attempting from this limited perspective to squeeze all of that into something we can understand. Let me give you an example of this so you understand what I'm talking about. Think back to your dream states or your astral experiences, if you've experienced them. What do you often notice? During that space of time where you're experiencing this dream, everything makes sense. You know why you're there. You understand the characters at play. The things that are told to you, you remember them impeccably. Everything is clear. So much is going on. So much depth. And then what happens? You wake up. And it starts to fade. 90% of that dream state disappears, like you attempting to hold on to water as it escapes through your fingers. Why? Because dreams and astral states take place in the higher dimensions. That's why they lack physicality. That's why they lack space and time. That's why you can think of something and immediately see it. You can think of a location and immediately transport yourself to it. Because it's not a rigidly defined dimension. And then you come back to your physicalized dream, the actual dream, which is a much more dense vibration, a much lower vibration. And it's like attempting to fit a car through a keyhole. You just can't do it, because this human mind does not have the machinery to be able to do that. It's so difficult to retain that information that you have in a dream state. Picture this. You have a dream, and then you go and try to explain that dream that made so much sense to you to a friend. If you've ever had this experience, you know how silly you feel when you try to do that. You end up having to color the experience, don't you? You have to color it. You have to use certain symbols to give a sense of continuity to the listener so that it makes sense to their mind. If you could just give the experience that you had, none of the words would be necessary, would they? The pure, unadulterated by mind experience. If you could immediately give that to the person that you're wishing to communicate this to, no words would be necessary. But as you attempt to filter it through the limited mind, what happens? You lose the essence of it. It's become rigidly defined and loses the majority of its meaning and depth. This is what happens. The experience is this deep, this wide. Once it gets to mind, it gets squashed through frequency and through mental filters. That is the same thing that is happening when we attempt to over-explain this journey through the feeble attempts of mind. Whether it is attempting to extrapolate meaning through actual quantum sciences, human sciences, or matching certain symbols, it is just a feeble attempt to grab onto this journey and squash it into something that can fit in here. But we don't need to do that. And the less you do that, the less you will suffer. And the less you will question why your journey doesn't look exactly like the standard official story that so many would have you believe. It's everywhere. Even terms like balance them in. That's a conflation of two different things. Them entering your experience and you balancing are not the same thing. But it's said so casually. Yes, once you balance them in, and the mind doesn't even question it, it makes sense. Why? Because it gives you a sense of control. I will balance them in. No, you will not. Your soul will bring them in when it wants to bring them in. And yes, there is a reflective component, which I have also spoken about. There is a one-to-one reflection. When you're there with them in person, yes, you can feel it. You can feel the pulls. You can feel the changes in energetic dynamic. Yes, there's some time delay too. But then there are also moments where it doesn't match that. Why? Because the soul takes precedence. Because higher dimensional machinery taking place that knows exactly what it's doing and doesn't need your active participation mentally. It doesn't need you to grab onto the steering wheel and attempt to push and steer and shove. Is this journey about surrender or is it not? Is it about knowing that you are complete? Is it about developing that trust that you are indeed a soul having a physical experience for a while? It is nothing else. There are no hard and fast rules. Apart from the absolute basics of how energy works. If you want to talk about duality, yes. Absolutely. You want to talk about the Hermetic principles? Yes. Those are hard and fast rules. Those are staying. They're not going anytime soon. But you're in your individual, physical universe. You are seeing reflections of everyone and everything that are tailored just to you, nobody else. And while all those other people empirically exist, apart from your twin, because they're you. Even that all those other reflections exist, you're only ever seeing versions of them in your individual, self-contained universe. So the experience is catered to you, and all it asks of you is to surrender to what is currently unfolding. To not fight the nature of your experience. It knows what it is doing more than you ever will or could, because you don't have the machinery to be able to contain the sheer perfection and majesty of this journey energetically. You just don't have it. That's not what the human experience is designed for. You are meant to perceive. You're not meant to conceive. You're not the one pulling the levers. You're the one experiencing. You know what this experience is really like? I've given this analogy before, but I'll give it again. Your life experience is like a movie that's been shot, scripted, finished. The credits have already rolled. It's done. You are simply showing up at the cinema to watch it unfold. But there's a catch. What's the catch? This is a very high-tech, immersive cinema. You're given a bodysuit and a helmet that pulls you deep into the experience of the main protagonist on screen. And it's so immersive that for a while you forget that you've come here to watch a movie. That's how deep it is. You forget that the story and script already know exactly how they're going to pan out. And you experience everything, you feel everything. The good and the bad. And just like a movie, the story experiences ups and downs and twists and turns. And the times that you will question whether your life is going correctly or if you've messed everything up, those times are the times when it doesn't feel good. Rarely do you ever question life and say, I feel like everything's gone wrong, when you're feeling great. And if your mind had its way, it would never choose to feel pain. It would only choose pleasurable experiences, fun experiences, safe experiences. But as we know, that's not what actually pans out. There is a predestined nature to your life, a predetermined factor to your life, your soul blueprint, your script that is flowing beautifully, might I add, regardless of how you feel. But there's also free will. How you choose to experience it. How you choose to treat yourself throughout the experience. How much you embody your soul throughout this experience. All the way to the inevitable conclusion. That's your free will. So while you are sat there, worried about if your journey with the twin is going correctly, you are forgetting that it is indeed going perfectly. Even when you're in pain, even when you feel lost, and even when you feel absolutely blind, where nothing makes sense, your journey does not match anyone else's journey. You're filled with doubt and frustration and fear. And you feel like you've messed it all up somehow. That you've somehow, by sheer virtue of failure, extricated yourself from this journey. And all of that is perfectly coming up for you too. And has to be there. You have to feel what you need to feel on this journey. There's no other way around it. This is a journey of embodying soul, is it not? How can we embody soul when we carry all of this pain within our field? How can we embody soul and be in a state of inner union when we are at odds with ourselves? When our mind is so filled with pain? You can't do it. That's why I say, sink into the body. Dive in deep. Stop judging what is happening outside of you. Nothing's wrong. Everything is perfectly designed. It's all unfolding perfectly. What you are feeling in this current moment is exactly what you need to be feeling. You're feeling lost and confused? Great. That's what's on the menu. That's what you're sitting with and transmuting. That's the part of you that you're loving. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. There are no useless creations. Soul does not like to waste time. It knows exactly what you need and when. That's where surrender comes in. That's where soul, what will you have me do, comes in. You're not saying that because you are deciding to relinquish control and hand the reins over to soul. That's a delusion. You're saying that because you realize you never had control to begin with. Two vastly different energetic standpoints. I could go on, but I'm going to leave it here, lest this video become too long. But I need you to see that you are on an awakening journey that is functioning and flowing as it needs to. If you're afraid, if you feel lost and confused, if you're in pain, that is what is surfacing for you right now. It needs to be this way, and it won't always be this way. The twin flame journey is a life lesson. It's not a life sentence. This too will change. Everything changes. Change is the only constant. If you want to start shedding these false beliefs you have about yourself in regards to this journey, if you want to start delving deep into what you're meant to be doing in this lifetime, if you want to be free of pain and obsession and fear, reach out to me. Let's do this differently. Let's cut past the BS on this journey and get to the crux of it. Let's learn how to surrender, but really surrender. You know what to do. Reach out to me. Connect to me. And let's work through it in my one-to-one sessions. All the information is in the video description, as it always is. I'm going to leave it here, but I will see you next time on the Void Compass with more.